The war between humans and had been going on for 7 long years. Both sides had lost millions of lives. Both sides had destroyed each other's worlds. There was no end in sight, and every soldier on both sides had learned to hate the enemy with everything they had. Sargent was one of those soldiers. He was 32 years old with tired eyes and hands that had seen too much death. He had joined the military when he was young and full of hope. Now he was just tired, tired of fighting, tired of killing, tired of watching his friends die one by one. His squad had been sent to clear out Outpost Theta 9. The battle had been fierce but short. Human forces had won, and now the outpost was nothing but smoking ruins and dead bodies. Led his team through the destroyed corridors, stepping over the fallen. There were tall beings, almost 7 feet in height. Their skin was silver like polished metal, and they had 4 arms instead of 2. Their eyes were large and violet, glowing softly even in death. They were beautiful in a strange way, but had learned long ago not to think of them as anything but the enemy. "Clear this section and move on," ordered through his radio. "We need to salvage what we can and get out before their reinforcements arrive." His squad spread out, searching through the rubble. Private Danny Cole, the youngest member of the team, was checking the eastern corridor. Corporal Lisa was securing the entrance. The others were scattered throughout the outpost, doing their jobs with the quiet efficiency of experienced soldiers. Moved deeper into the outpost, his rifle ready. Most of the structure had collapsed during the battle. Support beams had fallen, walls had crumbled, and the air was thick with dust and the smell of burning metal. Then he heard something. It was soft, almost too quiet to notice. A clicking sound followed by a faint hum, stopped moving and listened. The sound came from somewhere to his left beneath a pile of collapsed beams. He approached carefully, expecting a trap. Were known for their tricks. He had seen soldiers killed by wounded enemies who pretended to be dead. He would not make that mistake. What he found was not a trap. Beneath the fallen beams, protected by a small alcove in the wall, was a child. It was tiny, no bigger than a human toddler. Its silver skin was covered in dust and ash, and its 4 small arms were wrapped around itself. Its violet eyes, huge in its small face, stared up with pure terror. Around the child lay the bodies of 3 adults. From their positions, could tell they had died protecting the little one. They had used their own bodies as shields against the falling debris. Even in death, their arms were stretched toward the child, trying to reach it one last time. Raised his rifle. His training was clear. The rules were clear. Leave no enemy survivor. It did not matter if the enemy was a soldier or a civilian, an adult or a child. They had shown humanity no mercy when they destroyed 3 human colony worlds. They had killed millions of innocent people, including children. Why should humans show them any kindness in return? The child made a sound. It was not a cry or a scream. It was a soft, musical hum, like someone trying to sing with a broken voice. Had read about this in an intelligence report he had barely paid attention to. Children sang when they were scared. It was their way of calling for their parents, of seeking comfort in the darkness. His finger rested on the trigger. 1 shot. That was all it would take. 1 shot and he would be following orders. 1 shot and no one would ever know he had hesitated. But his finger would not move. The child kept humming, its voice shaking with fear. Its eyes never left his face. It did not try to run or hide. It just sat there, tiny and helpless, waiting for whatever would come next. Thought about his own life. He thought about the sister he had lost when they attacked Earth's outer colonies. He thought about the friends he had buried over 7 years of war. He thought about all the reasons he had to pull the trigger. And then he thought about who he used to be, before the war, before the killing. He used to believe in things like mercy and kindness. He used to believe that there was a line between being a soldier and being a monster. Somewhere along the way, he had forgotten where that line was. He lowered his rifle. Damn it, he whispered to himself. He moved quickly, pulling away the smaller pieces of debris to reach the child. When he got close enough, he expected it to run away or attack him. Instead, the child reached for him with all four of its small arms, making that same musical humming sound. Picked it up. The child was lighter than he expected, and its skin was cool to the touch, smooth like polished stone. It clung to him with surprising strength, burying its face against his chest. "Sarge," Danny's voice came through the radio, "you find something." His heart was pounding. He looked down at the child in his arms, then at the bodies of the adults who had died protecting it. "Negative," he said, his voice steady despite his racing thoughts. "Just debris. Continue sweep." He spent the next hour figuring out how to hide the child. His personal gear bag was large enough to fit the small if he removed some equipment. He wrapped the child in a piece of cloth to keep it warm and quiet, then placed it gently in the bag. The child did not make a sound. It seemed to understand that silence was important. Its violet eyes watched through a small opening in the bag, trusting him completely. Did not understand why. He was the enemy. He was human. He should be terrifying to this little creature. But the child looked at him like he was its only hope in the world. When the squad returned to the transport ship, walked normally, the bag over his shoulder. No one asked what was inside. No one noticed that it was heavier than usual. They were all too tired, too focused on getting home. As the ship lifted off from the destroyed outpost, sat in his bunk and opened the bag. The child looked up at him with those big violet eyes and made a soft cooing sound. "What am I going to do with you?" asked quietly. The child reached up and touched his face with one tiny hand. Its fingers were delicate, gentle. It hummed again, that musical sound that seemed to carry emotions could not name. He had just committed treason. If anyone found out, he would be executed. He had saved an enemy child in the middle of a war that had no room for mercy. But looking at that small, trusting face, could not bring himself to regret it. "I'll figure something out," he promised. "I don't know how, but I will." The child hummed in response, as if it understood. Then it closed its eyes and fell asleep in his arms, finally safe after what must have been the worst day of its young life. Held the sleeping child and wondered what he had gotten himself into. He had no plan. He had no idea how he would keep this secret. All he knew was that he had made a choice, and now he would have to live with it. Whatever happened next, there was no going back. 3 weeks had passed since had found the child in the ruins of the outpost. 3 weeks of hiding, sneaking, and lying to everyone around him. 3 weeks of wondering when his luck would finally run out. The transport ship USS Endeavour was making its slow journey back to human space. It would take another 2 weeks to reach the nearest military station. Until then, had to keep his secret hidden from over 200 crew members. He had found a small maintenance compartment near his bunk that nobody used. It was cramped and dark, but it was safe. He had made a little nest there using spare blankets and padding from unused equipment. The child stayed there during the day, silent and patient, waiting for to visit. Had started calling the child Pip. He did not know if had names like humans did, and the child was too young to tell him. But Pip seemed to respond to the name, turning toward whenever he whispered it through the compartment door. Feeding Pip was the biggest challenge. Had spent hours studying the ship's database, searching for information about biology. He learned that their young could survive on a special nutrient paste, similar to what humans used for emergency rations. The paste was thick and gray, and it smelled terrible too, but Pip ate it eagerly. Every night after his shift ended, would sneak to the maintenance compartment with food and water. He would sit with Pip for an hour or two, making sure the child was healthy and comfortable. Sometimes he would talk, even though he knew Pip could not understand him. It felt strange to sit in silence with another living being. Pip was smarter than had expected, much smarter. The child learned quickly that noise meant danger. Whenever footsteps approached the compartment, Pip would press against the wall and go completely still. The child's silver skin would darken, changing to match the shadows around it. Had not known could do that. It was like watching a chameleon disappear. But Pip also learned to trust. When he opened the compartment door, Pip would reach for him with all four small arms, humming that musical sound that had come to love. It was a sound of pure happiness, of safety and relief. It made feel like he was doing something right for the first time in years. One night was sitting with Pip when the child made a strange sound. It was different from the usual humming. It sounded almost like a word. Mama. His heart ached. He understood what Pip was trying to say. The child was asking for its mother, the mother who had probably died protecting it back on Theta 9. "I'm sorry," said softly. "I know you miss her, I know this is scary, but I'm going to take care of you, okay? I promise." Pip touched his face with one tiny hand. Those violet eyes, so large and innocent, stared into his. The child hummed again, a sad and gentle sound. Held Pip close and let the child fall asleep in his arms. He wondered about the parents who had died in that outpost. He wondered if they had been soldiers or civilians, if they had been kind or cruel. It did not matter anymore. They had loved their child enough to die for it. That was something could understand. The close call came on day 18. Was on duty in the engine room when Lieutenant Price announced a surprise inspection of the maintenance corridors. She was the ship's logistics officer, a strict woman who believed in following every rule exactly as it was written. She had a reputation for finding problems that no one else noticed. Felt his blood go cold when he heard the announcement. Pip's hiding spot was in one of those maintenance corridors. If Lieutenant Price found the child, everything would be over. He could not leave his post without permission. Running would only make people suspicious. He had to think of something else. "Lieutenant Price," said through the intercom, trying to keep his voice calm, "I noticed some unusual readings in Section 7 earlier today. Might be a coolant leak. You should probably check that first." There was a pause. Then Lieutenant Price's voice came back, sharp and efficient. "Thank you, Sergeant. I'll start there." Watched on the internal cameras as she changed direction, heading towards Section 7 instead of Section 4 where Pip was hidden. It had worked, but it would not work again. Lieutenant Price was too smart to be fooled twice. That night made a decision. When the Endeavour reached human space, he would not go back to the military. He could not turn Pip over to the authorities. They would take the child away, probably lock it up for study or use it as a bargaining chip in the war. Could not let that happen. He would desert, take Pip and run. Maybe find a quiet colony on the outer edges of human territory, somewhere the military would not look too hard. He had some savings. He had skills. He could start a new life, raise Pip in peace. It was a crazy plan. It would mean giving up everything he knew. His career, his friends, his place in the world. But when he thought about Pip's trusting eyes, about that musical hum that meant happiness, he knew it was the right thing to do. He started making preparations. He studied maps of the outer colonies. He researched false identities and how to disappear. He began hiding extra supplies in his quarters, things they would need on the run. Pip seemed to sense that something was changing. The child watched with curious eyes as he made his plans, humming softly as if trying to encourage him. "We're going to be okay," told the child one night. "I don't know exactly how, but we'll figure it out together." Pip reached up and grabbed his finger with one small hand. The grip was surprisingly strong. The child made a sound that almost sounded like okay. Laughed softly. "You're learning fast, aren't you?" But never got to carry out his plan. On day 21, everything changed. The alarm started screaming in the middle of the night shift. Red lights flashed throughout the ship. Jumped out of his bunk and ran to the bridge, along with every other crew member who was awake. What he saw on the made his heart stop. A warship had appeared out of nowhere, but it was not just any warship. It was a flagship, one of the biggest ships had ever seen. It was shaped like a massive silver blade, covered in weapons and armor. The USS Endeavour looked like a toy next to it. Captain Lawrence Gray stood at the center of the bridge, his face pale but steady. He was an older man, experienced and calm even in the worst situations, but could see the fear in his eyes. "All hands to battle stations," Captain Gray ordered. "Prepare for—" The communication system crackled to life. A voice came through, cold and powerful. "Human vessel, this is High Matriarch of the Dominion. You will not run. You will not fight. You have something that belongs to me, and I have come to take it back." His legs felt weak. He knew with absolute certainty that the High Matriarch was talking about Pip. The child's mother had not died in that outpost. She had come looking for her baby. And she had found them. The bridge of the USS Endeavour was silent. Every crew member stared looking at the massive flagship that had appeared before them. The ship was called the Eternal Silence, and it lived up to its name. It hung in space like a silver ghost, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Captain Lawrence Gray stood firm but could see the sweat on his forehead. They all knew the truth. The Endeavour had no chance against a flagship. Their weapons were too weak, their shields too thin. If they wanted to destroy them, they could do it in seconds. "I repeat," the cold voice came through the speakers again. "You have something that belongs to me. I am High Matriarch of the Third Ascendancy. My daughter was taken from Outpost Theta 9 3 weeks ago. I have tracked her signal to your vessel." The crew began to whisper among themselves. A child, on their ship, how was that possible? Captain Gray's voice was steady when he replied. "High Matriarch, I have no knowledge of any aboard this ship. Perhaps your tracking systems are incorrect." "My systems are never incorrect." His voice was like ice. "I can feel my daughter's heartbeat. She is there. She is alive, and someone on your ship has been keeping her hidden." Felt every eye on the bridge turning, looking for answers. His heart was pounding so hard he thought everyone could hear it. He should stay quiet. He should let them search the ship and find Pip themselves. That way, he could pretend he knew nothing. But then he thought about what would happen. They would find Pip alone in that dark compartment, surrounded by strangers who might hurt her. The child would be terrified. The child would think had abandoned her. He could not let that happen. "It was me." The words came out before he could stop them. Every head on the bridge turned toward him. Captain Gray's eyes went wide. He stared at him like he had lost his mind. "Sergeant," Captain Gray said slowly, "what are you saying?" Stepped forward. His voice was calm even though his hands were shaking. "I found the child at Theta 9. She was alone, hiding in the rubble. I couldn't kill her, so I brought her aboard. I've been taking care of her ever since." The silence that followed was the loudest thing he'd ever heard. "You committed treason," Captain Gray said. His voice was not angry, just tired and sad. "You know what the punishment is." "Yes, sir, I know." Something changed. The communication signal flickered, and suddenly could see the High Matriarch herself. She was the most impressive had ever seen. She was tall, nearly 8 feet, with silver skin traced by patterns of gold. Her 4 arms were covered in ceremonial bands that marked her as royalty. Her violet eyes burned with an intensity that made one to look away, but he forced himself to meet her gaze. "So," said, her voice carrying through the speakers, "you are the one who took my daughter." "I saved her," replied. "There's a difference." A murmur ran through the bridge. No one spoke to a High Matriarch that way. No one. Studied through the screen. Her expression was impossible to read. Could not tell if she was angry or curious or something else entirely. "Bring him to me," she finally said. "Him and my daughter. Transport them to my ship immediately. If either of them is harmed, I will destroy your vessel and everyone on it." Captain Gray looked at. There was nothing he could do. They all knew it. "Do as she says," the captain ordered. was escorted to the shuttle bay. Along the way, he stopped at the maintenance compartment to get Pip. When he opened the door, the child looked up at him with frightened eyes. She had heard the alarms. She knew something was wrong. "It's okay," said softly, picking her up. "We're going to see your mother." Pip made a confused sound. She wrapped her 4 small arms around his neck and held on tight. The shuttle ride to the eternal silence took only a few minutes, but it felt like hours. Sat alone in the back, holding Pip close. The child was trembling against his chest, scared of everything that was happening. "Whatever happens," whispered to her, "I want you to know that I don't regret it. Taking care of you was the best thing I've done in a long time." Pip looked up at him and hummed softly. It was a sad sound, but also trusting. She believed in him even now. The shuttle docked with the flagship. When the doors opened, was surrounded by warriors. They were huge, armed with weapons did not recognize, and they looked at him with pure hatred in their violet eyes. But they did not touch him. They did not touch Pip either. They simply formed a circle around them and marched them through the ship. The inside of the eternal silence was unlike anything had ever seen. The walls were made of something that looked like living metal, shifting and flowing in patterns that hurt his eyes. The light was soft and purple, casting strange shadows everywhere. The air smelled like flowers and electricity. They entered a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. It was a throne room, realized, and sitting on the throne was High Matriarch. She rose as they entered. Even from across the room, her presence was overwhelming. She moved with a grace that seemed impossible for someone so tall, her 4 arms flowing like water as she walked. Stopped in the center of the room. The warriors fell back, leaving him alone with Pip in front of the High Matriarch. Approached slowly. Her eyes moved from to the child in his arms. Something changed in her face. The coldness cracked just for a moment and saw raw emotion underneath. Pain, hope, love. She said softly. Pip's head snapped up. The child made a sound had never heard before. It was a word in the language, filled with joy and relief and desperate longing. "Mama." Pip squirmed out of his arms and ran too. The High Matriarch knelt down and caught her daughter, wrapping all 4 arms around the small body. She held Pip close, pressing her forehead against the child's silver head, making a low humming sound that echoed through the chamber. Watched them. He felt tears in his eyes, though he did not know why. For a long moment, simply held her daughter. The most powerful in the sector, the leader of armies, the destroyer of human worlds, was just a mother holding her lost child. Then looked up at. Her violet eyes were wet with tears, but her voice was steady. "You saved her," she said. "You are human. We are at war. Your people have killed millions of mine. I have killed millions of yours. And yet you saved her." "She was just a child," said. "I couldn't hurt her." "Why not?" Thought about the question. He had asked himself the same thing many times over the past 3 weeks. "Because I had a choice," he finally said. "Between being a soldier and being something else, I chose to be something else." Stood up, Pip still in her arms. She looked at for a long time, and he could not tell what she was thinking. "You have created a problem for me, human," she said. "By our laws, you cannot simply be released, but neither can you be killed. You saved the life of my child. That creates a bond that even war cannot break." "What does that mean?" asked. His answer would change his life forever. "It means," she said slowly, "that you belong to us now." Stood in the throne room of the eternal silence, surrounded by warriors who wanted him dead. He could see it in their eyes. To them, he was the enemy. He was human. He had no right to be here, no right to be breathing the same air as their High Matriarch. But had spoken, and her word was law. "You belong to us now," she had said, and still did not understand what that meant. "I don't want to belong to anyone," replied, his voice steady despite his fear. "I just want to go home." Tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Pip was still in her arms, clinging to her mother with all four hands. The child kept looking back making soft humming sounds. Home, repeated. And what awaits you there? Your own people will execute you for treason. You saved an enemy child. You broke your laws. You showed mercy in a war that has no room for mercy. Had no answer. She was right. If he went back to human space, he would be arrested, tried, and killed. His military career was over. His life as he knew it was over. Among my people, continued, there is an ancient law. It is older than our ships, older than our weapons, older than the stars themselves. When someone saves a life, a bond is created. The one who saves becomes connected to the one who is saved. This bond cannot be broken by distance or time or even death. I don't understand, said. You saved my daughter. His voice was heavy with emotion. You protected her when you had every reason to kill her. You fed her, sheltered her, kept her safe for 3 weeks. In doing so, you have claimed a place in her life. And by our law, I must honor that claim. One of the warriors stepped forward. He was larger than the others, with scars covering his silver skin. His violet eyes were filled with rage. High Matriarch, he said in a deep voice, this human is our enemy. He should be imprisoned or killed, not welcomed. Our people will never accept this. Turned to face him. Her expression did not change, but something in the air shifted. The temperature seemed to drop. The other warriors took a step back. Commander said calmly, are you questioning my judgment? Hesitated, could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but he knew better than to challenge his leader directly. No, High Matriarch, he finally said, bowing his head. I merely express concern for the safety of our people. Your concern is noted, turned back to, but my decision stands. This human will remain with us. He will be protected, provided for, and treated with respect. Anyone who harms him will answer to me personally. The warriors exchanged glances but said nothing. His word was final. Felt like he was dreaming. This could not be real. He was standing in the heart of an enemy ship, surrounded by beings who had been trying to kill him for 7 years, and their leader was offering him protection. Why? He asked. Why are you doing this? I'm just one human. I saved one child. Why does that matter so much? Was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than before. Because my daughter is not just any child. She is my last surviving offspring. I had 3 children once. The war took 2 of them, is all I have left. When I thought I had lost her too, I believed my life was over. She looked down at Pip, who was falling asleep in her arms. The little one had been through so much in the past weeks. She was exhausted but finally safe. You gave her back to me, continued. You had the power to end her life, and instead you chose to save it. That choice means something. It means that perhaps not all humans are the monsters we have been taught to believe. Thought about everything he had been taught about. The propaganda, the horror stories, the images of destroyed human worlds. He had believed all of it. He had hated them with every part of his being. But looking at now, holding her daughter with such tenderness, he saw something different. He saw a mother who loved her child. He saw someone who had lost almost everything to the same war that had taken so much from him. I never wanted this war, said quietly. I just wanted to live my life, have a family maybe, do something good with my time. Instead, I spent 7 years killing. As did I, replied. We have both lost much. Perhaps it is time to see if something can be gained. She gestured to one of her attendants, a female with gentle eyes. Take the human to the guest quarters. See that he has everything he needs. Food, water, rest. He has earned our hospitality. The attendant bowed and approached. He expected her to grab him roughly, to treat him like a prisoner. Instead, she simply smiled and gestured for him to follow. This way, please, she said in perfect human language. My name is I will be your guide. Looked back at one last time. The High Matriarch was watching him with an expression he could not read. Then Pip opened her eyes and waved one small hand at him. "Bye-bye," the child said in a sleepy voice. Felt his heart break a little, he waved back. "Bye-bye, Pip," he said, "I mean." Led him through the massive ship. As they walked, she explained things to him. The different sections of the vessel, the customs of her people, the foods he would be served. She was kind and patient, answering every question he asked. "Why are you being so nice to me?" finally asked. "I'm the enemy." Looked at him with those gentle violet eyes. "You were the enemy," she said, "but you chose to be something else. The High Matriarch sees that. Many of us see it. Perhaps the war has made us forget that there can be choices beyond fighting and killing." The guest quarters were nicer than anything had ever seen. The room was large and filled with soft light. The bed was enormous, covered in silk-like fabric that felt like clouds. There was a window that showed the stars outside, beautiful and endless. Sat on the bed and tried to understand what had happened to his life. 3 weeks ago, he had been a soldier, a killer, a man with no hope and no future beyond the next battle. Now he was something else. He did not know what exactly. A guest, a prisoner, something in between. All he knew was that he had made a choice in those ruins, and that choice had led him here. To a place he never expected to be, surrounded by people he never expected to know. He thought about sleeping safely in her mother's arms. He thought about the powerful leader who had shown him mercy he did not deserve. He thought about all the things that might happen next. And for the first time in 7 years, felt something he had forgotten existed. Hope. It was small, fragile, easy to crush. But it was there, burning in his chest like a tiny flame. Maybe the war did not have to last forever. Maybe there was another way. Maybe one choice, one moment of kindness could be the start of something new. Lay back on the soft bed and closed his eyes. Whatever happened next, he was ready to face it. 6 months had passed since had been brought aboard the Eternal Silence. 6 months of learning, adapting, and becoming something he never thought he could be. Life among them was strange at first. Everything was different. The food, the language, the customs, the way people looked at the stars. Had to learn it all from the beginning, like a child taking his first steps in a new world. But was patient with him. She taught him the language, word by word, until he could speak it almost fluently. She showed him how to eat their food, how to greet their elders, how to show respect in their culture. She became his friend, the first friend he had ever had. And then there was. The little one visited every day. She would run into his quarters with all 4 arms open wide, singing that musical sound that meant she was happy. She had grown in the past 6 months, reaching waist now. Her silver skin had developed the first traces of golden patterns, marking her as her mother's heir. Was learning human language from. She was a fast learner, picking up words and phrases with amazing speed. Sometimes she would mix and human words together, creating sentences that made laugh out loud. She said one morning, climbing onto his lap, "Today is big day," Mother said. Big day asked, "What's happening?" His violet eyes sparkled with excitement. "Peace talk, humans, and Mother says you made it happen." His heart skipped. He had heard rumors about negotiations, but he did not know how far they had gone. After everything that had happened, after so many years of war, could peace actually be possible? He went to find. The High Matriarch was in her command center, surrounded by advisors and military officers. When entered, some of them looked at him with anger. Others looked at him with curiosity. A few even nodded at him with something like respect. Dismissed her advisors with a wave of her hand. When they were alone, she turned to face. "You have heard about the negotiations," she said. It was not a question. Told me, is it true? Are we actually talking about peace? Walked to the window that showed the stars. Her face was reflected in the glass, beautiful and sad at the same time. "When I brought you aboard this ship, I did not expect it to change anything," she said. You were one human, one act of kindness in a war filled with cruelty, but word spread. Stories traveled. People on both sides began to hear about the human soldier who saved a child. Remembered the first few weeks after his capture. The news networks had broadcast his story everywhere. Humans had heard about it too, through intercepted transmissions and spy reports. He had become famous without wanting to be. Some called you a traitor, continued. Others called you a hero, but everyone agreed on one thing. If one human could choose mercy, perhaps there were others who felt the same way. And if there were humans capable of kindness, perhaps the war was not as simple as we had been told. You used my story, said. It was not an accusation, just a statement of fact. Yes, I used it, turned to face him. I presented your case to the Dominion Council. I showed them the recordings from your suit camera. They saw you hesitate. They saw you make a choice. They saw you spend 3 weeks caring for a child that was not your own, risking everything to keep her safe. Remembered those weeks. The fear, the uncertainty, the strange joy of watching Pip learn to trust him. It felt like a lifetime ago. The council was moved, said. Not all of them, but enough. They agreed to send a message to the human coalition, proposing negotiations. To our surprise, the humans accepted. And now we are on the edge of something new. Today, representatives from both sides will meet on a neutral world to discuss peace. It is the first time this has happened in 7 years. Felt his legs go weak. He had to sit down. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he said. I just couldn't kill a child, that's all. Sat beside him. This close, he could see the weariness in her eyes, the weight of leadership, of war, of loss. She carried it all every day. That is exactly why it matters, she said. You did not think about politics or strategy. You simply did what you believed was right. That kind of purity is rare. It reminded people on both sides that we are not so different from each other. Thought about his old life. The battles, the deaths, the friends he had lost. He thought about all that he had killed, all the families he had destroyed without ever seeing their faces. I have done terrible things, he whispered. We all have. Yes, agreed. But the past cannot be changed. We can only decide what to do with the future. She stood up and offered him her hand. Come, I want you to see something. Took her hand and followed her to the observation deck. When they arrived, he understood why she had brought him here. Below them, through the massive windows, was a planet. It was green and blue, covered in clouds. Ships from both sides were descending toward the surface, human and vessels flying side by side without firing a single shot. That is 7, said. The neutral world where the negotiations will take place. In 1 hour, I will go down there and speak with human leaders for the first time since the war began. Watched the ships descend, human and side by side. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Will it work, he asked. Will they actually agree to peace? I do not know, admitted. There is much anger on both sides, much pain. It will take time, perhaps years, before true peace is possible, but this is the first step, and it would not have happened without you. She turned to look at him and saw something in her eyes he had not seen before. Gratitude, respect, affection. You saved my daughter, she said, but you have done more than that. You have given both our peoples a chance to be something better. That is a gift I can never repay. Did not know what to say. He had never thought of himself as important. He was just one soldier, one man who had made one choice. But somehow that choice had rippled outward, touching lives he would never know. He felt a small hand slip into his. Had found them. She stood beside, looking up at him with those big violet eyes. You are staying with us, right? She asked. You are not going away. Knelt down so he was at her level. He looked at her face, at the innocent hope written there, and he knew what his answer would be. I'm staying, he said. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me, little one. Threw all 4 arms around him and hugged him tight. She hummed that musical sound, the one that meant joy and love and belonging. Held her close and looked out at the stars. He had lost his old life, his old world, his old identity, but he had gained something new, a family, a purpose, a chance to be part of something bigger than himself. The war was not over. The hatred would not disappear overnight. There would be setbacks and failures and dark days ahead. But there would also be hope. Small, fragile, beautiful hope. The same hope that had made him lower his weapon in those ruins all those months ago. Sometimes, the most human thing you can do is refuse to be what the world expects you to be. Sometimes, one choice can change everything. Smiled as he watched the peace talks begin far below. He did not know what would happen next, but for the first time in his life, he was excited to find out. And standing beside him, holding his hand, was the little alien girl who had started it all. The enemy's child. His family. His future.